This is Second Act Sessions with Stephanie Carmody, a podcast celebrating second acts in life about embracing change, questioning the status quo, and having conversations that really matter. If I've learned anything, it's that your second act is yours to define. No matter what chapter you're in, your second act can be the most powerful yet. Welcome to Second Act Sessions.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Chris, it's great to see you again. It's been a while, but welcome back. I'm glad to have you on.
Nice to see you, Stephanie. I'm really excited to be on Second Act Sessions with you. It's a wonderful brand, and I remember our conversation last month. It was awesome.
Yeah, you're the best. You're the best. So as I mentioned in my intro, Chris has been through quite an ordeal in your life with the loss of your son, Caden, back in 2021. Was it 2021, correct?
2022. Yep.
2022. Okay. So what I wanted to, if you wouldn't mind, taking us back there for a minute and just share your journey of that period in your life, because I think it really grounds in what the work you're doing now and really helping others sort of overcome grief and navigate that in their life. And I'd love for you to briefly share a little bit about that journey and what that looked like and how you navigated it in that time frame in 2022.
Definitely. So what I'm going to share really quickly too. So my grief journey is very expansive outside of Caden a little bit, and I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of that. But I lost my grandfather to terminal cancer in 2020. And that's really when my grief journey started, because I held him as he took his last breath, and that's something I don't wish upon anybody. But that was where my grief journey really started. That one took me about 6 months to a year to get in a good place where I could talk about it and not feel overwhelmed with grief. But when 2022 came around, when my wife and I got pregnant, it was 6 or 7 years of us trying to get pregnant in the first place. So this was kind of a miracle child, if you want to call it that. And we went through some very hard times when we got pregnant, because we dealt with a lot of bullying from her family. And so it was really hard for me to watch my wife go through that. When this was supposed to be a very happy, joyful time of life, bringing new life into the world. And so what was really heart-shattering and breaking on top of all that drama with family that we went through was that his heart stopped the day before he was supposed to be given birth. And so rushing to the hospital and hearing a nurse say there's no heartbeat, it's a soul-crushing blow to your gut. And the only way I can really describe it is if you ever had somebody smack you in the stomach real hard with a punch, that's exactly what it felt like. And every day when you're going through grief in that moment in particular, it's like driving down the freeway at full speed and slamming on the brakes. You just get checked real fast. And all of a sudden, everything in the world just kind of stops, and there's just you and the grief just right in that moment. And it's hard to process. You feel everything from anger to sadness to frustration to overwhelm to depression to crying your eyes out to scream. You feel everything all at once. It's very intense. And I'll say that journey, we went back to the hospital the next day. My wife gave birth to him. He is a beautiful, beautiful little boy. I'll just say that. And he was such a ladies' man. He took the 8 nurses' hearts in a minute, which was pretty funny. But all the same, when he was born, I felt like a veil got put up around my wife and my son and I, and nothing else in the world mattered at that point. And I don't really know how to describe it other than I really felt what actual love really feels like in that moment. And I know a lot of people are going to look at me and say, well, you're holding a dead baby. Well, I'm going to share with you, when that's your child, that love comes through with such strong force that nothing else really matters. And so, that was one beautiful moment. But when I left the hospital without him, I was enraged. I was angry. That did not go away for a very long time. It still peeks out in me 3 years after the fact. But what I will say, I was faced with a dilemma in life. I was faced with a big one. I said, this can be the moment that breaks me and destroys me, or this is the one where I can create. And creating, by the way, I'm going to tell you, is a lot harder path than sitting in it. And so I always say that, everything I do today, my coaching, my podcast, my book that's coming out in a month, everything I do is to honor and celebrate my son, because if he can't be here with me today, I have to make something of my life. I have to make something of this moment, and it's got to be worth it. And I want him to look down at me and say, hey, he didn't just sit there and wallow away in life. He made something of my memory, and he did something beautiful in life. And so I'm very, very driven by that purpose. So I hope that wasn't too long of an answer for you.
No, that's perfect. I totally forgot. I know you mentioned your grandfather, and I just feel like that was like 2 major events happening so relatively close together. It was just, I can only imagine that level of grief, obviously, right? I mean, and do you feel, obviously the death of your son have much more of an impact to want you to move forward to help others? Or do you feel like in a lot of ways you're also, it's partly for your grandfather too?
You know, both of them, I will share. I never had a father growing up in my life. My grandfather was grandpa and dad to me.
Got it.
And
Okay.
my
That
old
makes
man grew
sense.
up in the Depression. He grew up in a whole different era of things, so he was very hard on me growing up in many ways. But I will share in his last minutes with me, we didn't even have to say I love you to each other because it was unspoken and it was always there. It was never a question in my mind.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and you know,
Right.
losing my grandfather, this is something people don't understand about losing a child. When you lose a grandparent that's been in your whole life, and my grandfather was there for me for everything, 36 years. I can look back on 36 years of memories. I can look back and say I had great times with them. I can still hear his voice when I screw up or make a mistake. I can hear him in my ear saying, "You dumbass, like what are you doing?" Um, and you know, but with my kid, it was very different. It was I had this life planned. I knew I was going to change as a father. I wasn't going to be who I am. I knew all these things in my life were going to change. Now all of a sudden it's gone, and now I'm going, whoa, okay. What the hell does this look like, or how's this going to work? And so
Right.
I share that example to tell people that not one is worse than the other. Don't compare loss. Don't compare grief.
Right.
But know that they are going to be a very different experience, and be present fully for each one.
Well, grief is grief, right? And I just was filming something and saying that grief doesn't even need to be an actual death. It could a physical death of a person. It could be the death of a marriage. It could be a variety of things. I mean, grief is grief, and we all need to go through it, process it, and feel the feels. But what I love that obviously stemming from both and most directly the death of your son was that you were able to take that pain and turn it into purpose. And so I think it's great that you talk about that transformation, you know, that begins, you know, when we stop resisting the pain and really start learning from it. And so then what was the time frame, I guess, that you then realized, all right, I need to do something with this? How can I help others? What was that first step for you? What did that look like?
So I'm going to walk you guys through the last 12 months of my life because that's really when it happened.
Really?
I went through a major depression after his loss. I was in a very, very bad place. And this is why I don't judge people ever going through grief. If you're depressed, you're okay. I want you to know that right now. You're okay. You're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. You're not a problem. If people are treating you that way, by the way, they're not the right people. They need to vacate your life so you can heal. You know, the last 12 months, I got into podcasting a year ago this month, actually. Funny story.
Oh, well, happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you. And I started sharing my story, and I was very nervous about it because nobody held space for me to talk about my son. Just, it was always like, okay, well, it happened. It was a thing. And my brain could never get there. My brain was, this is my kid, and I don't care if he's dead or whatever. I don't care. He's my kid, and I'm going to talk about him. And so I got on podcasts. I did about 12 or 15 of them in the span of 3 months. And long story short, it was met with reception. It was met with, you know, lots of compassion and empathy and understanding. And these are complete strangers I never met across the world, by the way. These are people I don't even know. And it made me sit there, and Tony Robbins has a saying that I've learned through his coaching that if strangers care about me, I care about them. And I saw strangers care about me in this moment than some people that were in my life. And that really opened my eyes and said, there's a lot of power in Caden's story. And so one of my podcast guests, or not guest host, she actually helped me come up with the Empower Grief Journey, which is my podcast. This is a total lady that helped me figure that out. And so long story short, this whole movement and purpose over the last year has been very healing for me. As much as I've been helping other people, it's been healing myself. And I can confidently say that my son put me on a very, very big mission, bigger purpose than him being here, to help other people learn how to navigate grief and go through loss, because society has it so backwards that we don't hold space for people. We go, ooh, that's uncomfortable. Don't talk about that. Like, oh, you got divorced. You'll find another one. There's plenty of fish in the sea. Oh, you lost a child. You'll have another one. And I'll tell you guys right now, I've interviewed 116 people in 9 months on my podcast, and I'll tell you, not a single one of them ever says that. Not a single one. And all of my podcast guests have the following thing. We celebrate and honor the ones we lost. We celebrate the thing we grieve. We find a way to create purpose in our life through that loss. And my book that's coming out next month is a collection of those stories of people from my podcast doing things like I'm doing, where we turn pain into purpose. And that doesn't mean, by the way, that we don't have days we fall apart. It doesn't mean that we just forget about it. We don't have an emotional attachment to things, but it means that we're human and we're working through it, and that healing is a journey. It's not a destination.
Absolutely. I can echo that because we're all living that in real time. And so I completely understand that. So you talked about your podcast. Obviously that's going well. But talk about, because I also know you're an acceptance coach. So tell me a little bit about what that entails. When did you start that? How is that going for you right now as well?
So coaching's been really great for me. I have coached people all across the world this year, from the UK to Australia to Canada to, all over the place, all over the US. What an acceptance coach is and how I got to that is, funny story. I had so many people say that's such a weird name for a coach when I first came up with the idea, and like nobody really got it or understood it. But I'll share what it is. One of the hardest things I struggled with in my grief after you watch somebody die and you hold a dead baby is the following. You have to accept it. You don't get a choice. You have to.
Right.
And that was a big struggle point for me in my grief process, big one. I fought it a lot. And what I started to realize is that the more we deny ourselves our reality, the more we suffer. And I'm going to tell you right now, everybody's journey is their own, so I'm not judging anybody or telling you what to do. But at a certain point in your journey, you have to get to this place of accepting things. And that doesn't mean that we like it. It does not mean that we agree to it. And it does not mean we were going to make peace with it right away. But it's our ability to just say that this is what happened, not what I think what happened, but what actually happened. And I accept it fully, good, bad, everything in the mix of it. And when we do get to that place, by the way, it's our first step of becoming a better version of ourselves, because who we were before our grief journey happened doesn't exist anymore. That person's gone. I can tell you guys right now, the person I was before my grandfather passed died a long time ago. The person I was before I lost my son, long time ago gone. I'm a whole new person because of these circumstances. And I can look back today, 3 years later, and tell you this. I couldn't tell you at the moment, but I am grateful for all the gifts, the lessons, and the blessings that have come out of these moments. It doesn't mean that I'm okay with it, by the way. I'm not. But I have learned so much, I've grown so much, and I have found such purpose by just accepting the fact that this is what happened. And I think it's a powerful thing to give yourself permission, by the way, to say, I don't have to like this. I don't have to agree to it. Everybody tries to force that thing to do those. And I always tell people, you don't have to. Acceptance is something that will come along for you when it's meant to be, when it's meant to happen. It's not something to be forced or pushed.
Yep. I agree with that. And I feel like that is something that I don't think a lot of people realize, that with grief, the acceptance is such a big component of that, right? Like, I think we can't change the outcome, obviously, like, or what happened, but I think once we accept it, it's so healing for us. It's almost like forgiveness. Like, forgiving someone doesn't mean it's for them. It's really for you, to give you that peace. And I think acceptance when it comes to grief is very similar. And so I know that has been your journey, but what I would love to know is, like, how did your faith or spirituality play a role as you were navigating all of this and coming to a place of acceptance?
I'm really glad you asked that question. So back in 2020 in April, back on my New Hampshire property, across my driveway, there was a bad windstorm that happened back in April. I was having a really bad day, and I asked God for a sign because I wasn't a big believer back then. Somehow this tree snapped and formed a perfect cross, literally like this in the trees. On the cross. I mean, it literally looks like a cross out of the Bible. And I walked down my driveway and I look up and I went, yep, I understand. You are real. Like, I'm all good for now. That wiped out my phobias. But what happened after my grandfather passed is 30 days after he passed, I had a dream of him talking with him for hours. And I mean, it was so real, like you and I talking right now. He ended up walking off at a certain point in the conversation. I asked him, so where the hell are you going? And he's like, I have to go, but he said, I love you. And, and that was it. And I was like, I woke up at 4 a.m. crying my eyes out. So after Caden passed, I just spoke to God one day and I said, if you can have my grandfather watch over him for me, because I can't be there, obviously. And I said, I hope that can be something to keep him safe. Well, 30 days after Caden passed, I have this dream of a pristine white room in a hospital with a hospital bed and a sheet behind the bed. And I can't make out faces or anything, but I can hear voices. And what I hear is a bunch of little kids that are somewhere between like 3 and 5 years old, screaming like they're at a birthday party, just jumping for joy and excitement. And I see these like two hands kind of like this, if you will, from your perspective. And I see in there something like a baby lion or a tiger. My son's animal that we made for him was a lion. That was his thing before he was born. Anyway, so I see this lion figure, and I see these two hands, and I hear this voice come through, because again, I can't see faces, and it's my grandfather's voice, and he's telling everybody to be quiet because the baby's sleeping. And I woke up out of that dream, and I was like, there's something much, much bigger at play in this world, in this life we're all walking right now, because I can't explain it, and I can't definitively say if it's reality or just I'm dreaming things. But it felt so real to me that I couldn't help but understand that, you know, this was something bigger in life. And so not even 4 months ago, I had a medium reading with one of my podcast guests that I hosted. And long story short, my son and my grandfather came through with some very powerful messages for me. And again, what, you know, tripped me out about that, I never told this woman things about my grandfather, Caden, that I just never really opened up about. And she brought up this thing about choking and having a hard time breathing. My grandfather had COPD. You know, she brought up that I told my son I was really sorry for all the anger I had in that moment before he was born, because our family was not being the nicest of things. And he told me, he said, I know how much you care about me. Yeah, I know I do. And he said, but you have a big mission right now. So he's put me he's put me on a big mission of things, and I can't really explain spirituality wise if that is realityville or not, but to me it seems very real, and it gave me a lot of grounded purpose to move forward.
Well, it certainly set you into your second act, you know, whether you wanted it or not, but now you're fully have stepped into it. And I think it's great they're helping so many other people. And I'm assuming some of your clients that you coach are coming to you from a variety of different grief topics, correct? I mean, is it just death, or are you seeing people coming to you from loss of a job or divorce, or, you know, what sort of clients are you helping? Or are you seeing that are seeking help?
I've run the gauntlet, Stephanie, I'll be honest with you. I've helped people that are suicidal. I've helped people that are going through divorce. I've helped people that have lost pets. I have a client right now who lost her mother, her father, and her uncle all in the span of 2 years, back to back. She also relocated here from a foreign country that she lived in for 22 years. And so she's dealing with cultural resettling issues, things like that. And so I say this to share that grief doesn't happen in one area of life. It's not tied just to death. And so this is where I've just been given a gift to hold space for people, because if society's not going to do it, I'm going to step up to the plate and give that opportunity for everybody.
Well, and I believe, you know, for me personally, you know, whatever, you know, faith you believe in, I do believe that God can use all things for good, right? So he can always turn a horrible negative situation into something positive, like for you to be helping others and pay it forward. So, I mean, I think everything does happen for a reason, even if we don't want that to happen, of course. That's the unimaginable. But I guess when you mentioned as an acceptance coach, then what does acceptance really mean in the day-to-day moments of grief? Like, how does that look?
You know, that's a great question. I tell people the following: when you're going through grief, you are going to have days where you just can't deal with the world. You're going to want to stay in your house, and that's just the end of that. And I'll be honest, I have those days too, still 3 years later.
I still do too.
Acceptance, by the way, is giving yourself permission, because I think all too often we seek externality validation from everybody around us, from society. I see it all the time in political conversations all the time. We're looking for validation externally when we don't realize that what we do have control over is within ourselves. And when I say this about grief and you ask me about acceptance, it's the following: that you need to accept the fact that you are where you are today, and that's okay. If you feel like shit today, that's okay. If you were having a real hard time keeping it together, that's okay. You do not need to be anything else than who you are today. And I say this in the realm of acceptance, of telling yourself, I accept this about myself today. I accept that the best I could do today was get up and watch TV. I accept the best I could do was go to the grocery store and come home. I accept that I had a great day today, and I went on a road trip and had all these experiences of things, and life felt normal for once, and it felt like a breath of fresh air. Acceptance is just giving yourself permission to just be you.
Right. And I also think a lot of that has to be with patience, like being patient with yourself, being kind and loving to yourself, and feeling the feels and not beating yourself up for, why am I still so upset? Or I should be past this by now, or I should be doing X, Y, and Z. There is no timeline, right? I mean, for me, it's been 3.5 years since my divorce, and I still have moments where I'm like angry, right? And I'm frustrated, or I'm stuck. I'm so mad that I'm stuck being single now. This is not what I envisioned for my life. Like, as I'm sure you did, like, this is not at all what you envisioned for your life, but we still have to move forward with acceptance. We can, provide peace and hope and love for other people, because if not, what's the point of it all, right? Like, it has to mean something more than just a horrible loss.
Well, what you said is a true thing. The reason I share this with everybody, this is my viewpoint on grief, and you guys see it's very empowering. I don't sit in the well of it often. And the reason is because when you hear those things from people that you should be over this by now, or you should let it go, or get over it, it's part of life, it is what it is. What you're really hearing, by the way, is a projection from somebody else. That's somebody else's fears and phobias and belief systems and experiences being pushed upon you. And what I want to encourage you guys with, why I'm able to move through my grief the way I have, is that there's 8 billion of us walking the planet. That's 8 billion different stories. That's 8 billion different journeys. That's 8 billion different viewpoints. That's 8 billion different perspectives. To say that we should deal with grief the way our neighbor does, or our cousin does, or our mom and dad do, or whoever it is in your life, is utterly crazy, because you're giving up who you are. You're giving up your experience. You're giving up this moment of life that is solely yours. It's your experience. And so I say this to tell you to celebrate yourself in those moments, that if you're not over it, I got a news flash for you. I talked to people that are 40 years deep, older than me, who haven't gotten over it or let it go. And guess what? That's okay. That's fine, because that's their journey. So I can share that, I can share that somebody like me who's getting through things a little faster, or 3 years after things, I've got things I can teach and learn with other people. That person at 40 years, by the way, same thing. They have things to teach and offer to help you learn and grow. And so don't ever try to fall into that trap of shoulda, coulda, woulda, and do things somebody else's way. You just can't.
Yeah. So. Or like try to compare yourself. Like someone, I think there's a lot of comparison, right? Oh, well, they did this, I should do that, or I should be clear by now. And you're right. Everyone is on their own journey, whatever it is, grief, religion, faith, like everyone's on their own journey. We can't really expect people to be where they should be, because there is no such thing. It's all personal. And I think that's such a great point that you're mentioning. I guess what I also wanted to know is like, what helped you from just surviving while you were dealing with your grief, right, into truly living again? Was it giving back? Was it starting your podcast? Was it becoming a coach? Like, was there one moment or something in particular that really helped you kind of shift that narrative or thinking in your brain? Does that make sense?
That's a loaded question for me. I'm gonna try to answer that the best I can.
Sorry.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I get looked at funny when I say this, but it's the honest truth. I'm never fully gonna be healed. Never gonna happen.
Of course not.
So I say this to tell you guys and give you guys permission, the ones that don't want to give yourselves permission. You're never gonna be fully healed, and that's okay. We're all humans living a human experience, and so. What really got me into a place of living my life, honestly, was that the people that weren't safe for me to be around as I was grieving and trying to go through things, I went different ways. I just removed them from my life, and I minimized contact or went no contact with things, because you need to be able to manage your emotions, and you need to be able to sit with you. That's who matters, not everybody else, you. And that's the place that you can start to heal. For me, that was going on podcasts and having the freedom to say what I needed to say and sharing my story. And then what was really healing, by the way, was seeing the reactions from other people, the people that I've never even met. I met people in so many time zones, so many countries, I can't even keep track. But they all showed me and said, wow, compassion, empathy, understanding. I don't know what that's like to lose a child, but damn, for you to be able to talk here today and share the story, I'm grateful to have this opportunity to talk to you. When I started really letting myself let go of expectations, let go of, trying to make things work with people I wasn't going to work with, that's when my world started turning. And that's where I started attracting all these people. My book came together because I just attracted the right people by letting go of, trying to hold on to things, trying to hold on to relationships that didn't work, trying to do things that weren't bringing fulfillment in life, if that makes sense. So what I encourage is when you go through grief, it's a personal transformation journey of letting go of all your past and moving forward and meeting this new version of you. This doesn't mean, by the way, forced change. What this means is meeting the new version of yourself. Think about it like dating in a sense. And by the way, it's confusing. It's uncertain. There's a whole lot of days where that just looks like a rocky road. But for me, in the last 12 months, I can tell you that's why I've gotten to the place where I am today and where I can help people. And you guys all have gifts, by the way. I don't care who you are, what your walk of journey was, what grief you went through. I don't care. You have a very, very powerful gift to give out in the world, and I want you to find that, because that thing is going to magnetize all the people, the opportunities, anything in your life. And it's all going to be because you gave yourself permission to grieve the way you need to grieve.
Right. And that actually is really interesting, because I think one of my next questions is that, Len, how can someone honor their grief while still creating space for joy and new beginnings, right? So it's like kind of balancing both, so to speak. So like, what are you, or do you share any tips or provide any advice for some of your clients that you coach, kind of navigating or finding that balance, right? Because like you said, there's going to be days you just want to lay in bed all day, right, and cry. Or there's days where you have a really wonderful day, but then the next day is right back down again. So how are you sharing with your clients to kind of manage or navigate that balance, I guess?
My biggest thing,
if there is a balance.
I'm going to be honest with you, the balance looks like this. It's never like this. And so, I kind of equate it to like being in a marriage. And I know not every marriage is perfect, but there's going to be days, by the way, that marriage looks like a 70-30 split or an 80-20 split. And then it looks like 20-80. It goes the other way around. Grief is a lot like that. So what I tell my clients to do is track your day, track your behavior, track your moods, by the way. That's a big thing to do. I'll share with you guys, after my son died for about, I don't want to say 6 or 12 months, I don't know why, but the 23rd of the month, I was one angry mofo. I don't even know what to tell you, but I woke up angry. I was angry all day. I didn't want to be around people. I just could not keep a lid on the anger thing going on in my brain. And that happened religiously for 6 to 12 months. And what I went through, there was a moment I was trying to build a box for his ashes, and I got pissed off with the wood, and I stepped on it, smashed my foot, ended up in a boot for 6 weeks. What came out of that moment was that I realized I had a lot of love for my kid that was not able to go places. And so all this anger I was feeling was actually love. And so the reason I share with my clients to track your moods and track what's going on in your grief cycle is that you're going to be able to see where the good days are and the bad days are, but more importantly, writing down how you feel, what triggered things that day, what made you feel that way that day. I want you guys to be able to see where that love sits, where it's trying to go. I want you to also see, by the way, like me, that anger wasn't anger. That was love for a child that I'm never going to have back in my life. That's what it was. And so it's to help us focus on the right things in our life. And that's why when I coach people through grief, and I've had clients come to me and say, oh, I just had a hard day. I didn't do the homework. I said, I don't even care about that. I said, what happened this last week? And they'll say, I had a really hard week with emotions. I got triggered going to the store. I got triggered because somebody said something insensitive. And I said, let's talk about that. We can worry about the homework later. The reason I do that is, again, we're just trying to figure out where this grief cycle is. And the reason I say that is because I want you to realize what's here and what's down here. I want you to realize these things, because grief is not an intellectual thing. You can't sit there and say, okay, well, I'm grieving today. I'll be fine tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. Grief lives down in your heart. And so you've got to be able to hold space for yourself, give yourself permission, like I've been saying, and just fully understand and meet yourself where you are. That's really how you can get through grief, loosely faster. I don't really like that word, but you can get through it faster, so to speak, if you pick up on those patterns.
So. Do you feel, just out of curiosity, because I know they say time heals all wounds, and I even know, obviously I've done a lot of healing, but a lot of times time really does just help. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to erase anything, but I think with time, things soften, or your emotions calm down, or you start just feeling better. Like, how have you felt the impact of time has had for your, I guess, grieving process? Like, do you feel like it's helpful at all, or nothing really helps outside of doing the work? Do you know what I mean?
To answer your question directly with Caden, I'm going to say time doesn't really work for that one for me. Just it's me personally. I'm not going to blanket statement that. His birthday this year, I cried my eyes out like the day it happened. Don't know what to say, but time didn't work that way. The year before that, by the way, it felt like things got worse instead of better for me. My grandfather, I had family drama happen on that side of the fence when he passed, and I will say that, back then it was really hard, but now it's 5 years out, and I can look back and say, I can now understand this from a better situation. What I want to share with you guys about grief, by the way, we're dealing with emotions. You can't hold an emotion. You can't mess around with it. It's all up here and in there. When you're in the thick of grief, your emotional intensity is very, very high. And I can, Stephanie, you've been divorced. You can probably look back and think about fights you've had with your husband and however long that happened ago. In the moment, that was really, really intense, right? But now that you're years away from it, you go, okay, yeah, that was one of those things, whatever. When that emotional intensity comes down, I think time does help us get to that place. It doesn't erase things. It doesn't always just get it out of the way and you all of a sudden feel magically better, but it's giving you that space of dissonance to really process and understand it. And so, for example, I can just say, like, I was very, very angry at my in-laws for treating my wife the way they did, treating me the way they did. I've been 3 years no contact with them, and I consider and say, you know what? They just did not have the tools or the emotional capability to be present for us during that time. And that's really unfortunate and really sad, and it wasn't fair how they treated me. It wasn't fair how they treated us, but, they're living their path, I'm living mine. I couldn't say things with that little emotion attachment if you asked me that 2 years ago. I couldn't do it. And so time gives us that ability to start processing things, to try to work through our trauma and not really relive it, but it lessens the intensity. And that's where we get back again into our control of things, where we can focus on ourselves.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You're so good at this. I'm like, why didn't I know you 3 years ago? I should have called you.
Well, thank you.
So I want you to share, obviously, you're a coach. You have an amazing podcast that I've been on. And now talk a little bit about the book that you're working on, because I think it's so remarkable. So fill us in on what you have going on right now with that.
So to share with you guys, to get to the book of where that happened, I started my podcast at the end of February this year. I recorded about 60-something episodes by June. What I got in my brain was that there was so much power in these grief stories, and it was so loud. I mean, you guys listen to my podcast, you'll hear it from my guests. They have beautiful voices and stories. And I started realizing how much grief is very misunderstood and not given space. And I said, I really want to write a book. I don't know why, but I said, why don't I write an anthology? So I reached out to 22 people on my podcast that I had really connected with, that had powerful stories. And I was shocked all 22 of them said yes right out the gate. It wasn't even like a pull strings, nothing. They said, we're in. And so my book is called The Empowered Grief Journey, 23 Stories of Grief That Carved a New Path Forward. And so inside this book, you'll find everything from heartbreak to divorce to child loss to grandparent loss to, narcissistic abuse from family members. You'll see the gamut of grief. And the most powerful thing is I've got people from Australia in the book, people from Canada in the book, people from all over the U.S. and different backgrounds and different belief systems. And I'm really grateful and so appreciative of these people for putting their faith in me to put something like this together, because I've never done this before. And number two, being willing to be so vulnerable and open with their grief journey. It's such a powerful thing. I can't describe it to you guys, but I get goosebumps when I think about it. Because I've watched these people that have gone through some of the most turbulent times of life. I mean, some stuff that I can't wrap my head around because I haven't experienced it. But I see what they're doing today. And a lot of them are like coaches and authors and speakers and working in their communities and working in the grief space, really transforming people. And, I look at all the work that we put into this book, and I can't help but think that it's going to be a big hit. It's going to be a big seller. And I think it's because it's not a book that's going to tell you how to deal with grief. It's not going to say, here's the 12 steps of grief, you're good. It's not going to be that book. But it's going to be a book.
Because there really are, right?
Yeah, there's really not. You can't grieve the way I do. You can't grieve the way Stephanie does. I can tell you that. But this book, you're going to read these stories, and you're going to literally feel these people walking through their journey. And it's going to inspire you. I'm going to be honest with you. It's going to inspire you, and you're going to go, I think I know how to work my grief journey now. That actually makes sense with me. That resonates with me. I'm going to take this away from this story. So I'm just really excited about it, and it's, I wish I could sit here and say, it's my book. I feel like it's our book. That's really how I feel about it. And I've told every author that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great that you're doing that because, even for me, who has not gone through anything of, what you've experienced with the death of a child, but a divorce is like a death. And I feel like even just being around other people that have experienced something similar helps the grieving process. And to your point, I don't feel like anyone talks about the grieving process. It's, okay, this thing happened to you. What are you doing next? But there's so much in between that goes on in the healing, and grief is such a big part of that you're right. I don't feel like people really allow the time and space for people to grieve it. Or maybe it's just not talked about. Like, is that what you've experienced? Or personally, or what you've seen in some of people you coach or the people that you've worked with on podcasts? Because that's what I've seen.
Yeah, I've just seen a complete, trying to think of a good word for that. I don't feel like grief has held space very well, just to be straight. I don't, like you went through a divorce. I'm sure you've had people tell you, oh, you'll find another one someday. You'll get married again someday.
Well, and it's like, because everyone goes through divorce. So as I was even going through it, you're like, oh, everyone goes through this. I should be fine. It should be fine. I'm like, it gutted me. It was so detrimental. It was so awful for me. And I'm like, am I the only one feeling this? Or does everyone who went through divorce feel this? Because no one talks about that. Do you know what I mean? That part of it.
Well, let me ask you a question. How long were you married?
13 and a half years together, 15 and a half.
15 years, right? So that's about a decade and a half, right? The thing that people don't understand about marriage, by the way, that gets overlooked all the time, you wake up next to this person, you cook breakfast with this person, you spend your nights, your weekends, your trips, your talk about your jobs, you have kids, you have pets, you have houses, you buy cars, you go on trips. Your whole life is wrapped around with this person. And then when that thing just goes choo, like that, I hate to break this to you guys, but that isn't one of those things where you just go, oh, okay, well, I guess it happened. I'll find somebody else. Now, it doesn't work like that. You start going back and saying, well, I spent 15 years with this person. Like, we went and did these things, or we had this thing going on here. We had these kids here. We bought this house, or we bought this car. And your brain is constantly living there because that's the environment you created. So when you do get divorced, no, I'm sorry. You might find somebody else, and whoop-de-doo. I don't really care about that. But what I do care about is you now have a new life you have to adjust to. You're now living on your own. You're now in your own world, by the way. You're not relying on somebody else for approval or feedback or things like that. And by the way, most people who go through divorce, it's a big rebirth. It's a big, like, who the hell am I now? Because, I don't have to tell me how old you are, but I'm just going to use an example. If you're 45 years old now and you got married at 30, you're a whole different person than who you were when you started. Whole different person. And by the way, if that divorce happened, there might be a part of you that never got to show itself. There might not be a part of you that never got to come up to the surface and say hi. And now that you are on your own, that person's coming up. And now you're saying, oh, hi to myself that I never really gave space to. Like, who are you? And I'm not trying to make light of this, but this is what I talk about in grief, is that when we say dumb things like, you'll find another person or you'll get over this at a certain point, we're skipping that conversation with ourselves, that rebirth. And I think it's deserved for people that go through divorce. I don't think are held space really to understand that, because if they don't take the time for that, by the way, yes, you might find somebody else, but now you're carrying your baggage and your problems into a new relationship. And the problem will repeat itself if you don't give yourself permission, give yourself time to really go through to yourself and say, what were things that I made mistakes with? What were things they made mistakes with? What do I really want next time? What do I want to be? If we're not taking the time to ask ourselves, dig into that rebirth and make ourselves a better person, then we're going to repeat history. And that's the sad part that doesn't get talked about.
Very true. I think that's all the part of the grieving and the healing involved throughout that process, because even as I not struggle, but I've had a lot of grief. I'm also grieving when I'm realizing, oh, this is my life. Now I'm single. I got to date. I got to figure out someone new, blah, 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 blah. And like, that just makes it even more upsetting in a lot of ways. And it kind of brings you right back to, like, this is my life. And it's so bittersweet, because on one hand, I have like such a wonderful, amazing future ahead of me, but you're still grieving what you thought your life was supposed to be or was going to look like. So it's for me, I feel like I grapple with that, not on a daily basis, but every now and then it kind of like comes back up and I'm like, oh yeah, this sucks, or, but I'm going to be okay. But it's just that it is so new. It's jarring. It really is jarring at times, but it's all good. Obviously, I think everything happens for a reason, and that's your journey. And you just gotta, I don't want to say get through it. Just give yourself time, feel the feels, do the healing, do the inner work, get to know yourself, and process that grief, because grief can look like so many things. Like grief can be laughing one minute and crying the next minute. You know what I mean? You could wake up every day as something different, right?
I try to tell people the following about interpersonal relationships. There's a great book I've read. This isn't really related to it, but if you want a good book about that, Courage to be Disliked, great book about interpersonal relationships. My biggest thing that I tell people that can help you kind of lessen the emotional intensity down and really get into that place of understanding is that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a blessing. I'll be honest, I had to remove 2 people from my book project, and I took it really hard, by the way. I mean, it set me back in my project. That was a whole personal problem of mine, which I won't get into, but I was really upset, and I sat there and asked myself one day, I said, why am I so upset about this? And I sat there and said, well, one of these people I really, really care about. I had a great friendship with. We coached a lot. We did business networking together. We did a lot of things together. And I have a deep, deep care for this person because I see their potential of who they can be. And they let a lot of stuff get in the way of this project and also just moving forward in their journey. And it was really hard for me to see that because I cared so much about that person. But when I got to this place of people come in your life for a reason, a season, or a blessing, when you can get to that place, what I'm going to say is it removes that emotional intensity for you to sit back and say, what did I appreciate about this friendship? What did I learn from this? How did I grow as a person because of this person? And this is where all that anger starts going away. And that's what happened to me. I was angry because I cared so damn much. And I saw this person fully for who they were. And I had to get to that place to say they're not really ready to walk this journey with me. They're just not. And that's okay, by the way. There's nothing wrong with them. I care because I have a big heart. But they came into my life and showed me, by the way, that if I sit back with my own stuff in that same manner, I won't get to where I need to go. So lessons right out the gate.
We can learn from everything.
And on top of that, I ended up with 2 new authors in the book. They taught me things I didn't even know. And they brought 2 total different topics to the book. And so I can't help but sit there and say that I don't have hard feelings anymore about it. And I saw that relationship gave me what I needed, and it gave them what they needed to where they are in their journey, but it also put new people in my life. And so it switches you out of those gears a lot faster. It puts you in a place of gratitude, appreciation, and contribution, which is where I try to live a lot. And that's a hard journey, I'm going to be honest with you guys. But if you can live there, by the way, beautiful things, they come towards you. You don't have to fight and pull and hope, wish, and pray. Great things gravitate to you. And that's where I think in the throes of grief, I'll end it with this. If you can turn your grief into purpose, you will find gratitude, appreciation, and contribution. You will find all the people that are meant to be in your life. You'll find money, you'll find everything you're looking for. It'll all come to you. And it's just leading from that good place. And so, I want to encourage everybody, if you are in the throes of grief right now, you're where you need to be. You don't need to be fixed. You're not a problem. But I want you to know that one day you will wake up and see that. And it'll be your own delusion, by the way. I can't tell you how, but it will happen. And I want you to seize that moment, seize that opportunity. And I want you to switch gears from the pain of grief into purpose. Caden could easily have been a very big pain point in my life, and it was for a long time. But I honor him and celebrate him, and I create a legacy for him. And you guys have the same opportunity, and I want you guys to do it because all of us that go through grief, we all have a gift to give. And when we give, by the way, that fills the heart, that fills us up. And that's where that pain thing now becomes remembrance and honoring. And that's purpose of life.
That's beautiful. And I think what's great is that you don't have to have a podcast or write a book to have purpose or to help others. You can help in your community. You can help by sharing your story with friends and family. There's so many ways that you could help others and impact others, and it doesn't have to be on a platform necessarily, So I think that's really great, Chris. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and you've actually really shared a lot of great tips, and I really appreciate that. Where can all my listeners and viewers find you to learn more about you, your story, hopefully buy your book when it comes out, and your podcast? Where can everyone find more information about you?
So if you guys want to connect with me, visit empoweredgriefjourney.com. I got a website on there. You guys can hear more about my backstory and see what I offer for coaching. And you guys can also tune into my podcast there too. You guys can find me on Apple and YouTube right now. I'm getting new podcasts uploaded on there over the next month, so stay tuned for that. If you guys, as far as the book goes, I will have information on my website. Social media wise, I'm getting back on board with those things. You guys can find me on Facebook. I got a lot of accounts to manage, so it's been a little bit much. But I'll just say Facebook, you guys can find me at the Chris Mamone on there. You guys can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn at the Empowered Grief Journey. I want to encourage you guys, by the way, my pages and my sites are a safe place to come and share where you're at in your grief journey. There's no judgment, there's no negativity, there's none of that stuff. This is holding space for you to walk your journey, because I've created a community of people that you guys will see when my book comes out. This community of people that I've networked with and built, we're there to support, we're there to guide, we're there to lead, but we're also there to hold space. And if you guys need a safe space to come because you've just got people around you not listening to you for whatever reason, not telling you to get over it, you're going to come find us that says the opposite, because we want to help you grow from pain into purpose. And I'm just going to say it's a great group of people to connect with. Can't say it better than that.
Oh, that's great, Chris. I love what you're doing. And I think it's great. And I'm sure, and I know your grandfather and your son are both smiling down on you. I fully believe that. And you're doing, to cry, I think you're doing the Lord's work. And that's beautiful.
Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that.
You got it, Chris. Thank you so much. Of course. And I'll make sure, Chris, all your information is linked in this podcast episode. And thank you all so much for listening. And everyone have a great day, and God bless.
Thanks so much for listening, and be sure to subscribe to Second Act Sessions on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen, and start your own inspiring second act today.